Let me mention a word about the State Department version of transformation, which is different from, quite different, entirely different from the DoD statement of transformation. In our world, by the middle of this century, in 2050, the total of all of the population of North America, including Mexico, and all of Europe, including Turkey, will be 10% of the world's population. Okay? 10%. So if American diplomacy, American power, American influence is going to be an essential factor in the world of the 21st century from midpoint onward, we have to make a substantial influence in a big part of that 90%. And you can see once again that that can't be driven entirely with a military sphere. That has to be the influence of our culture, the influence of our ideas, the influence of our business practices, and our moral stature in the world. That's the way great countries lived for a long, long time. So in the American diplomacy, we are trying to change the entire way our officer corps responds to problems and where they are trained and what languages they learn and so on. We don't recruit people by religion, of course. We have no idea how many Southern Baptists we have in the U.S. Foreign Service. We have no idea how many of any religious faith we have in the Foreign Service, but we recruit on the basis of the diversity of this country. When the U.S. consulate was bombed in Jeddah, I guess now 3 years ago, and a number of local employees were killed, the officer we sent to Mecca to go to their funerals was an American Muslim Foreign Service officer. And our approach to the world is to be able to transform in that way to meet the new priorities. If you were a business, you'd have to go where your market is. In diplomacy, you also have to go where your market is. So in our version of this scheme, handling crises in those circumstances has to be part of what we do as a normal practice. It also means that we have much more responsibilities, for example, to learn how to be program managers, something State Department officers have never known how to do, and which our AID colleagues did know how to do, but they've shrunk to such a small size now that they don't have the resources to do it well either. And so, to sum up for me, and to talk about the issue of security, I don't know how you define security in your own minds, but in the world in which we actually live, security involves how to protect the oil refineries in eastern and southern Nigeria, where there is not a single armed American soldier, but where private companies and other firms are going to have to operate. How should they be operating? What is their relationship to the embassy? What is their relationship to American authorities? That's a question that we're going to have to answer. I will say this, UN Article Chapter 6 activities, which to many Americans is a kind of security circumstance they almost instinctively resist because it is not does not involve the compulsory use of force. It often involves a kind of presence, whatever that may mean, to help enforce a security circumstance. We need a doctrine that is large enough and big enough to deal with those kinds of issues as well, and whether American forces would be part of that. Let me say one or two words about culture and philosophy, and then I'll close. There is, when I went to Iraq for the first time, I went down to Hila, and I visited one of our Foreign Service officers down there who was running an economic assistance program. She was not 30 years old. She was sitting at a desk in an unfurnished room in an abandoned schoolhouse, and she was handing out contracts at $200,000 a clip to people whom she believed would be able to get that part of the country going again. So we need a sufficient flexibility and authority to do that kind of thing without a lot of bureaucracy. We need to have a good conversation between the State Department and DOD about what you mean by response. The State Department is so accustomed to sending one guy or two people and asking who do they know, and they'll call that person, and they'll, and maybe they'll turn out to be 3 or 4 people there responding to something. Whereas if you ask one of our military colleagues about a response, automatically we're talking about groups of men and women in very large numbers. And so this concept of how we deal with each other is part of the issue that we have to face. It's not merely communication. It's really a cultural orientation that both sides have to learn to appreciate in order to secure a genuine kind of work. There's an article in the paper today in the Washington Post about social capital. I don't know if any of you noticed that. But social capital is that degree to which people in a society are willing to trust each other and work with each other. So one of our objectives would be, how do you actually build social capital in a country, whether you're occupying it or not? But without that social capital, you're not likely to be successful, whatever the technical expertise of your efforts may have been. I am very, very happy to have at least started a process. It's very unfortunate that with respect to the Office of SCRS, repeated pleas to the Office of Management and Budget to fund it have fallen on deaf ears. The response with respect to the Civilian Reserve is the same kind of response. You can't have a principle that is unfunded and have people believe in it. So I think this process of effective coordination between national forces in the United States, civilian and military, and reaching out to international groups, NGOs, and national authorities in other countries with whom we're going to work is at least a decade-long project. But I don't say that in order to make you feel pessimistic, and I don't say it in order to make you realize how large the challenges are. I think that you've heard a great deal today. Stuart Patrick's list of the challenges I thought was an excellent summation of where we are. But I say it in order to have a view of the end goal so that we can start working on it collectively. And if you remember that we're the country that waited 50 years to free Eastern Europe when a lot of other people have been perfectly willing to make a deal. And we're the country that helped Southeast Europe become eligible for membership in NATO and in the EU, something people wouldn't have dreamed about 25 years ago, then you realize that we're a country capable of mastering these kinds of tasks. And I'm happy to be part of the process, and I wish you a great deal of luck. Thank you.